Good afternoon, everyone. I've been asked to talk to you today about holding outs in the auditing profession, and I think it is probably going to be relevant in the tax profession as well, but once you know what holding out means to us as a regulator, it probably will affect the tax profession eventually, or maybe it's already relevant to the tax profession. What I want to talk about before I start talking about holding outs is, again, the importance that financial institutions like the RBA, SARS, the FSB, the JSE, the Reserve Bank, the important role that they play in times of economic crisis, financial crisis. And auditors often ask me, why do we want to continue to maintain high auditing standards and comply with the highest standards, internationally recognized standards, when in fact everything else seems to be falling apart? But I think it's exactly in these times that we need to, as financial pillars in the economy, that we have to stand strong, and the professions that support us and whom we support, that they also step up to the plate to ensure that we can create the necessary confidence in our financial system, in our economic system, and with that comes growth, because investors will invest in a country where they have confidence in the financial institutions. When they invest in a country, it will affect the economy and ultimately create employment. So it's very important that we have good professions, world-class professions, and that there are regulators to ensure that that happens. Now, a lot of professionals do not like to be regulated. At the moment, only auditors are regulated in South Africa. And the reason for that is, if auditors were not regulated, it means that the public and investors can't have confidence in the services that they deliver. I'm talking about auditors because that's the example that I'm going to use. Auditors are regulated because they provide or they sign off on audit reports on which the public relies to make investments in companies. And if they don't comply with the highest standards and somebody checks that they do, and the auditing profession is one of those professions, in fact, probably the only profession in South Africa where there's a regulator that checks to make sure that they comply with the standards that we set, and if they don't comply, that we take action. Now, the public needs that kind of confidence and assurance that that does happen, because if not, then how do they know that the professional is complying with the standards that are prescribed to them? And that affects the tax profession, of course, with the new recognized controlling bodies, and the fact that tax practitioners are more regulated than they were in the past, and will probably become more regulated going forward. And the ultimate objective is to protect the public, because if you have tax practitioners that provide incorrect advice, not only does it affect SARS, but it also affects banks, it affects the public at large, it affects investors, and the fiscus, of course. It's very important that there is regulation. It's not a bad thing. It's a good thing because it means that there can be more confidence in the work that's provided by the particular professional. That is just background to what I'm going to talk about. First, I'll tell you a little bit about the RBA, because we probably might end up in a closer relationship with tax practitioners going forward. I'm not sure at this stage. I'll talk about our mandate. I think very few people know exactly what we do, so I just want to cover very briefly on what our Act says we should do. The services provided by audit firms and how that has changed in our current environment, globally and in South Africa. Tell you what our four-pillar strategy is, because one of those pillars might have an impact on tax practitioners going forward. I'll explain to you then what a holding out is, what we mean by holding out, and the common areas for holding out, what drives holding out, and then finally just my advice as a regulator to tax practitioners. First of all, who is the RBA? We are a statutory regulator and standard setter. We established in terms of the Auditing Profession Act, and what we have to do, our ultimate mandate is to protect the public. So in addition to setting auditing standards,